Hello, my name is Brian, and this is a little walkthrough of a writing app that I'm started working on. It's a web-based writing app called Hilker. It's for like stories, screenplays, that kind of thing. So it's got some Scrivener aspects, as well as some additional idea capture and story planning features, which are kind of what I want to show in this video. Just sort of a general flow. Like there's a million things missing. This isn't a beta so much as a prototype. You can do a bunch with it, but it's not really. It's not even in an alpha stage probably. But I just would like to get opinions if anyone has them on whether they think the flow of this, the general flow, makes sense and seems cool. It matches the way I conceive of and write apps. So I'd be curious to know if there's more than just a couple people who would find this interesting. So this is a. If you're to use this, you could use it at hilker-dev.web.app, but I'm just showing a local version, so it might look a little different by the time you see it. Excuse me. I have a 6-year-old, and they are disease factories, or the schools are, I guess. Anyway, yeah, so you can create projects pretty easily, so I'm just going to create the first one. You can create multiple projects and then toggle between them because, that makes sense. This all gets saved in your local browser cache, so there's no way for you to load it up in a different browser right now. Although this button over here will, it's not like to download. I don't know if you can see that at the bottom, but it downloaded it. Okay, the browser window scope below. But anyway, so you can download it to export it, but you can't load it anywhere else. Eventually, I would have like a login system, to save stuff online and everything. But currently, I'm just focused on the writing. So I'm going to go. Let's go to notes. And so the initial phase, sort of the core, the genesis of this is. Let's see if this is still right. There you go. Through note taking. So the way I do it, I'll go on Evernote when I'm thinking of a story, or if I'm just walking the dog or whatever, I'll just write it down, and then later on I'll move it into some other format if I'm sort of working on a story. But this tool allows you to sort of do that all in one step. So imagine this was real text and not placeholder Latin, and then this sentence here made me think of a story beat. I could just say like I don't know how to call it. One doesn't really matter what you call it. I mean, you call it whatever you want. You can change it. So I could go back and just do this, and then boom. So what happens when you select the text in this view is it does this little context menu, so you can create assets of different types. So you can create, these icons aren't final, but you can create an arc and a character, it's a dialogue, a story beat, and a chapter. Because there's chapters, which chapters are scenes, however right now the language is chapters, but if you were doing a screenplay, I probably wouldn't use that language. But if this sentence here made me think of a character, I would create like a character named Bob, and that would be cool. And if I think that's an alert from my email blocking my face for a second. But if this one made me think of dialogue, I don't know what's going on there, and hold the fort or something. And what else do we have here? And so, I've got to create a chapter, don't I? Chapter 1. And I mean, the idea here is you would put as much text as you want, and then you select the text and you create these entities that get persisted across the project. This is a way to sort of extract semantic meaning from the text. So you're not just writing it down and then having to transfer to something else. You can do that. You can have multiple notes and everything. And then the last one, I think was the last one here, was what do I have characters? Oh, an arc. Right. Save the world. And then that's pretty cool. So then I have notes. I can create multiple notes, as you would have, as you would expect. This is the second note. And so the interface is very much in flux, so it's not meant to be visually a statement on anything. So I have this chapter that I created in the notes. So if I go to note 1 and I say, where do I have it here? Chapter 1. And I do a little, I don't know, I'm going to add an exclamation mark just so you can see what I'm talking about. So it says chapter 1, exclamation mark, because it's the same document. As well, the assets that we created in the notes and the capture are now part of the project, so you can see Right now, this is as bare bones as it could possibly be, and you can save, here, boom, which I think I just replaced a placeholder with the actual text. Oh, that didn't save the name for some reason. That's a bug. See, it's buggy. It's a prototype. I think I have to save world. I think that's, boom, there we go. I don't know why I did that. Oh, interesting. I'm not saving the title for some reason. Anyway, that is a bug, but that's not hard to fix. So create these. And then the idea eventually is to let me create a couple more chapters so you can see this. I figured I'd actually just show the creation of this rather than having a canned project, just so you can see how relatively quick it is. The writing will take a long time, but not the actual creating buttons and stuff. So I've got these few chapters. Eventually, instead of stacked this way, they'll be beside each other, and then they'll have like the components of the chapter will be kind of elaborate in a way that will, where are we here? Sorry, I'm just going to look at this. Whoa, my cursor just is hiding from me, but because I'm a professional. Did I have it there? Okay, so this is, oh, there you go. Cool. This is a mock-up for the eventual project view, which would have, you create all these chapters and you add components to it. You can add arcs, you can add locations, which I don't actually have in this mock-up, or this prototype, and characters and stuff like that. And so the idea here is you'd be able to drag them around, so you'd be able to like rearrange them, and you'd be able to add things. So you'd like drag locations from this kind of drawer of characters, and over here, you have dialogue and story beats, stuff like that. So you could do that, and it's pretty cool. So that's what that will look like. Right now, by contrast, it looks like this, which is garbage, but it's a prototype. Excuse me. So I'm going to write, and I'm just going to, whatever, boom. And then chapter 2, this is text. And so the way I would get to the kind of stuff here where I have the arcs in place and everything is I would add them to the chapter. So I'm going to add an arc to the chapter, and I have an existing arc on the project, so I can just grab it. Excuse me. I am getting really dry here, and I'm going as fast as I can, but I'm just talkative or rambly, I guess, is the larger concern. Anyway, so if I want to add that, and I want to add like a character, and I have Bob here, then I'm going to add another character. I'm going to add, I don't know, just because I'm being weird, I'm going to type 4. And I might have a dialogue. Hold the fort. There you go. So I can both create those entities in this view or invoke ones that are already in the project. And the one that I just created, so I just created Thor here, but he is in the assets view. Thor is there. So it's part of the project, and I could use it elsewhere. So if I went into, that was in chapter 3 or 2 rather, so chapter 3, I could add him. And the thinking here is in the planning, if I add all that in the planning, what I would do is, because right now you can see in chapter 2, it says characters and 1 dialogue and 1 arc. So then when it's visualized, oops, grabbing this here again, moving the mock-up over. When these are all added, you could do this before writing anything. And then you would go into the chapter to write, and you'd go to chapter 2, and all of those assets would already be there. So you'd sort of have a reminder of what you're needing to write. And the story beats and the dialogue. So I have a story beat. The story beats and the dialogue would likely serve as sort of a to-do list, an ad hoc to-do list. So initially it would be incomplete, and then you could, if you were, I know there's a typo there. Oh, that's going to bug me. There. So, if I put whatever I write, if it relates to the story beat, I could signify to either hit a check mark, or I select the text and get the context menu that I get in the notes, and say this is that, this text relates to that story beat and completes it. So you could get a sort of an ongoing progress report per chapter, and eventually this would have not just chapters, but subsections. So per subsection, you could see sort of the progress. And so this part is pretty simple. This part is nice. And once you've got some stuff done and you have the assets, and you could, like say this Bob now, each of these types would have different metadata you could add. So here I'd put, whatever biographical information you might want to add, or any information that seems relevant to your writing of them, imagery, stuff like that. Right now it's all the same just because it's super easy. But I will likely do a thing where I could say tag in this dialogue. I could tag the character you want to say it. So if I would say, oh, I want Thor to say this or whatever. And as well, the story beats, I would then be able to add like arcs and characters, stuff like that. So you build this kind of map of connectivity. So in this section, if I go to chapter 2, when I add this story beat to this project, it could pull in those characters because it would know what is required. So you get this kind of map of your story, which is, I think, pretty cool. That's not stuff I currently do, but that's stuff that I think would be useful to me. And then when you got it written a little bit, this would be kind of combined. The chapters and reports views will likely be combined when I get to the mock-up I showed you earlier. But this shows you sort of what the actual progress of the story is compared to the planning. So you have here, I just have the one arc. So it's, only appears in chapter 2. But if I were to go and say, add an arc, I'm going to say of the Covenant, because I'm hilariously clever. And I'm going to add that one here. If I then go to the report, I can see both of the arcs, and I can see that the Covenant has the arc of the Covenant. Ha! I didn't resist that bad joke, nor did I resist explaining it. You can see that I have that in place, but the Save the World arc doesn't really get a lot of coverage. And if I had more chapters, it would kind of scroll off the side. But additionally, you can view this, so you can have the characters. So I say here I have Bob, and I can see that he's in chapter 2 with Thor. Story beat is used in dialogue and stuff like that, which you would get a pretty good sense of in the I don't know why that Epic Real Games thing is, because I didn't even know that was open. Wild. Okay, I was trying to click the image again, but that was a system alert that came up. Anyway, so that would be a way to visualize some of the interrelations of the story, but then the chapters, when it looks more structured, would also offer views. So I'd likely need to combine the chapters and reports views to a certain extent. But that's the current version, and that's that's the vibe of the thing. So the notes and adding this kind of stuff, so I can then edit it, and it's kind of cool. So if I move the text around, I can I can move that down, punch a hole and everything. Also, it's kind of cool is if I think this is both a character and dialogue, this will screw up the visual, but I can overlap. So they'll overlap. So the little tabs here visually overlap because I haven't even come close to fixing that. But you can have like overlapping. You use the same text for multiple times or multiple items. Anyway, so that's it. And so it gives you this kind of sense here. You can remove them as well. So if I no longer liked this one, I can remove it from this. It says chapter, but from the scratch pad, but keep it on the project, or I can remove it from both. And so then it's gone, and there is no. There's just the one dialogue, so you can remove it, and there's all different levels of that. So now what I could do, if I hit this little button here, this would download the actual text in plain text files. Technically, it gets saved as Markdown, but it's exportable. So yeah, if you think this is cool, I'd love to just hear what you think about it. Actually, whether this makes sense as a flow. If my video made no sense, I guess, but. And if it does make sense, what it makes you think of and what other things you think it kind of implies. And if it doesn't make sense, why doesn't it make sense? Anyway, thank you.